going on? You're listening to This Is Not Reality. I'm your host, Amber. You can follow the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or SoundCloud, wherever you listen to the podcast, so you can be notified the next time that I drop an interview. And I also just added a YouTube channel. This Is Not Reality on YouTube now hosts full-length episodes of This Is Not Reality. Right now, my first 2 episodes are up there with Rachel Demond and Noble from the Museum TV. And this 3rd episode should be up there now. If you're listening to me on YouTube, shout out to you. But if you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and do that. It helps me out, and it helps you out for convenience. I always share my clips on Instagram, so go ahead and follow me there at Amber's Afro. AMBERAS. Wait. AMBERSAFRO. Okay, I can spell. My next special guest is Dev T. Smith, a multimedia producer and content strategist who has worked for brands such as Tidal, Revolt TV, eBay Enterprise, Magento, Fuse TV, Black Enterprise, and more. He's garnered over 3.3 million site visits, $2 million in ad revenue, and has reached a linear and digital audience of over 50 million viewers. I met Dev at an event that was geared toward teens who might have an interest in media, but given that I was post-grad and working part-time at the Boys and Girls Club, I still had a lot of questions about my own career, so I sat there in the audience, I took notes, and in true Amber fashion, I introduced myself afterward. And I followed Dev on Instagram, and I watched as he continued to work with these major brands to really change the narrative or control the narrative for the next few decades. Dev reminds my listeners that at this point, we can't deny the power of content strategy, of social media, of Black influence. All that Dev is saying is that we need to find a way to pay people for their influence, to give them credit and recognition in real, tangible ways. He talks about pushing the culture forward. How do we track that change is what he dedicates his career to. And that's what he talks about during this interview. From the content that he creates, to the brands that he's been able to work with, to his ideas and his own personal journey, there's so much to learn from Dev. Thank you for agreeing to do this with me.
Of course.
I have been nagging you for about 2 years since I met you. When are you going to be in Boston? What are you doing? What's your schedule like? And now that I have this platform, I'm like, I had you on the list. I'm glad that we can make this happen. So thank you for joining me, Dev.
It's a pleasure.
And so let's start off with the central theme of this podcast, which is about the relationship between work, school, success, and our sense of purpose. Mm-hmm. Talk me through your journey, your professional journey. How did you end up working as a content strategist and a producer? Where did it begin?
Oh man, I'll say it began in college, but I didn't know I was doing it. It was like this was when social media was still relatively fresh in terms of like professional usage versus casual usage. Mm-hmm. So like everybody had a Facebook or a Twitter or before that MySpace and things like that, but companies were still learning how to like actually leverage these mediums and think of themselves as publishers. So when I was an intern, I was the one I started off like spamming like every marketing agency in the city. I went to school in Greensboro, North Carolina. Mm-hmm. So I was just like emailing like everybody trying to get on. Yeah. And someone finally hit me back. I forgot the name of the agency at this point.
Like a marketing agency?
Yeah, was it Bloom Agency? I couldn't even tell you. Mm-hmm. But I was like running around in there like, oh, you guys need to build like a company Twitter and have a blog and all this stuff. Like, and they're like, go like print these papers. You know what I'm saying? Yep. So I guess that's kind of where
interns.
But yeah, right. Like trying to do stuff that nobody asked me to do. Mm-hmm. So I guess that's kind of where I'll say that's where I started getting into like how content can be used as a tool.
Yeah.
When I really got into it was when I had just graduated college, and I was just in a really I was in a real curious space, just like looking for inspiration, looking for.
Can I ask you what you studied?
I studied communications.
Okay, so you studied communication, and after that, you were looking for inspiration.
Yeah. I graduated, and like anybody, when you graduate college, just kind of this in between space where you're like, all right, what am I doing? So I started a blog at first. It was called Live Inspired, which is the same name as the program that we ended up.
Yeah, I was like, that sounds familiar.
Right, that's where it came from. So it was like just literally looking for inspiration. I would interview like people just every week that I thought had found a way to like rope their passion into their work.
Yeah, so kind of like what I'm doing now.
Right.
I'm like, yo, you were doing this. How long ago was that? What year was that?
2013.
Okay, yeah.
So I was doing that, and I was just like, because I always was able to write. I was always I never wanted to be a journalist. I just was good at writing. I was writing at a 12th grade level when I was like in 5th grade. I've always been able to write, and I've always been a good communicator and conversationist. Yeah. So I was interviewing people like once a week, and then I don't know, like I still remember the website, like it was like all this collage of like all the iconic people we know of, but like younger, like Oprah when she was young, like as a newscaster, when like Steve Jobs was young, stuff like that, right? I was just caught up in this space of like everybody started from the same point. So those were the stories I was trying to tell, and I was running that for a while, and it was like, I mean, the website was so ugly, but back then I thought it was everything. And
I'm proud. That's good.
Yeah. It was dope. And then so what happened was I started getting. Try to speed this up. I don't want to.
No, it's okay. I'm here for the
ride. So I started getting like feedback. Like people would like email me, or not email me, but like DM me on Twitter and like say they love the different stories. Like it was a range of people, from like people like homies from school to like I'll never forget this like old I won't call her old, but she was like an older woman. She had to have been in her 50s.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I read your story on such and such, and that's when I started to see the power of a good storytelling. It could apply to anybody. But I didn't want to be a blogger because everybody was a blogger, and I'm like, I don't want to be a blogger. Like, you know what I mean? What can I do to be different? So I'm like, I'm gonna start a magazine.
Okay.
Like, I didn't know what I was doing, but I had got to the point where like all my friends were like, this is when everybody's like got this creative bone to scratch.
Yeah.
People are looking at like we have time now. Like we don't have to be in class all day. We ain't worried about tests. You got a job. You at your job for how many hours, and you got all this free time. So what are you gonna do with it? So everybody
relax? No relaxing.
Hell no. So what happened was people were like, yo, can I write for you, or do you need photography or whatever? And I'm like, all right. So in my mind, I'm like, all right, I can make this a thing where everybody feels invested.
Yeah.
So I made it a magazine rather than a blog, and I just like built out like content categories and stuff. And,
was it still Live Inspired magazine?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we built that out. We ended up changing the name to like Infinite, it's Infinite. I don't know. I was just like, I was trying to find a name that didn't sound corny.
Yeah. Marketing, right?
Yeah. So we ran that for like 4 years, and it was dope. That was my first step into real content strategy. Was like running a team. I had writers from LA all the way to like the UK, editorial meetings and all this stuff. Like,
did you see anyone else doing that, or
nah?
What gave you courage? Was it just seeing the feedback and
because in North Carolina at the time, like it wasn't. We didn't have a market for creative stuff. So we didn't have like a Complex, we didn't have a Fader, we didn't have a A3C festival, we didn't have none of that. But we have culture. You got to think there's like North Carolina is like a hidden gem. Like you have Raleigh, you have Durham, you have Charlotte.
I go there one day.
You should.
I want to travel this whole country. Hopefully with this podcast.
You should. And North Carolina is a sweet hotbed for hip hop and all these things. And I'm like, well, there's nothing here where like the underground culture here has a platform to share our work with each other. So I was like, all right, well, I'll make that. Right. So like, our first cover was Rhapsody, I remember. She was like performing at my school. So I went on campus. I had already graduated. I just walked up on her like, yo, I'm trying to do this. And she was down. Like,
that
stuff
courage
like that.
is literally, that gets you through the door a lot of the time.
It does.
Just speak up, ask. That's something that I'm very proud of myself.
It
Like,
does.
I'm not shy. If I need something, I'm gonna ask for it, and that's how you get a lot of.
And most people
things.
are willing to rock with you if you approach correctly.
Yeah.
Like, most people are down. So yeah, like, that was my start. That was
Yeah.
And we ran that for like 4 years, and I think we did like 4,000 page views a month. I thought it was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, now thinking back, it's like midget numbers, but when you first
I
started
know,
out,
we have your impressions on your website too, so hopefully everybody goes and checks that out and see
you know what I'm saying?
the growth.
So
okay.
it's kind of like this. So what happened was, I was pushing that for a minute. I was working at Sprint at the time.
Okay, so you were
like,
still working a regular job.
Yeah, and I would sell. I would do anything I could. I'd go in the store when we open and like put the magazine website on all the phones and tablets. I'd do like fake sales.
Your boss didn't catch you, or were you the manager?
I mean, my manager, I felt like he saw it, but it wasn't a thing until I
Yeah.
started putting like fake sales together. So what I would do is like I had hard copies in the trunk and T-shirts. So what I do is be like, yeah, you know what I'm saying, you get a Bluetooth. You get a magazine with it in a T-shirt.
Oh my God,
And,
yo! It was Sprint, yo.
Yeah.
You're like you ain't getting no lawsuits. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't care, but that's a hustler's mentality.
Yeah, I was trying to do like
I
know,
love
I
it.
was it was just like hip hop kind of informs everything. So it was just like Master P and all of those. Like I was trying to apply the same principle. Like I could just do this. I could figure out a way to do this from the mud. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Was Sprint your last like real job, or what was? Or
that was my last job that had nothing to do with my profession. So I got fired. I got fired. Shout out to Eric. That was
blessing and a curse.
That was my manager. He fired the hell out of me, but shout out Eric. I was a blessing in disguise.
Right. That's what I meant. Yeah, blessing in disguise.
So I moved to Charlotte. Was there for a little while. Long story short,
Yeah.
try not to drag it out. How I ended up coming to New York was I got laid off from my job. I had just bought an apartment too. Like I just got a crib. They told me they was like I was doing contract. They're like, yeah, we're gonna bring you on full time. I'm like, cool. I'm like, y'all sure? Because I'm about to get a crib. Because I was driving back and forth for work for like an hour and a half back to Charlotte from Greensboro.
Oh.
So I'm like, I'm gonna get a crib up here. So they're like, yeah. I signed the lease. 3 weeks later, they let me go.
That's scary, kind of, huh?
It was scary. Yeah, I mean, but it was a necessary thing. You need the real world to punch you in the gut.
I felt more motivated this year. Now that I hate that I'm like this.
Yeah.
But when you got fire under your ass, you'll work like
when
you've
things
never
fall
seen
through
yourself.
the floor,
Yeah.
it's like what you gonna do. So, my man's came through. He's my business partner now, Dave. He came through. We put all my stuff in a U-Haul and threw it in a dumpster. And then I went and stayed at my mom's for like a weekend, and I came to New York with like $70.
Yeah. Did you have friends that you stayed with and all that stuff?
Yeah, I was couch hopping and all that stuff.
All
And
New York stuff.
what happened was my first real job was I was applying for like social media strategy jobs on what's it called? Not Indeed.
Idealist.
Craigslist.
Ooh.
So what happened when I was broke? I'm talking about broke, like broke. Like I don't even know how I was eating.
Yeah.
And I got called in for this interview. It was a company called Magento. I had never heard of it before. Magento is like this big e-commerce platform, but I'd never heard of it.
Yeah.
They said it was paying $20 an hour. I'm like, I'm with it.
Yeah.
So I go in, and the elevator doors open, and it says eBay Enterprise, and I'm like, oh, I ain't finna be broke no more.
So are they related?
eBay owned them.
Oh, okay.
So I go and interview with the head of marketing for America. Her name was I'm drawing a blank already. Gianna, something like that. I forgot, but she was super cool.
Yeah.
Long story short, she was like, yeah, how do we like use social for like whatever? So I was like,
so earlier, you were like trying to get organized corporations to see the value of social media, and now this person was willing to like feed your ideas, give you the
like
space
years
to grow.
later when like the market had caught up.
Right. So time has passed.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So I went behind her desk.
And what year was this again?
This was 2014, 2015. Something like that.
Yo, and then after that, I think internet just took
off. Yeah. So I got the job on the spot. Long story short, I made her a strategy like on the spot. She hired me, and she let me work from home. So I got to go back to North Carolina and like save up some bread.
Wow. So after Sprint, you got a nice. I mean, you went through a little struggle.
Yeah. That was the tip of the iceberg if we talking about struggle.
and then you got to work from home. So that's lit. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to talk about where your journey begins, because we're going to get to some of the exciting projects that you've done. You have such a catalog of work. Research all of the work that you've done, but I feel like I'm going to touch on a lot of prominent projects because you've just done so much.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Good work. And one thing that I talk about a lot in my work and on this podcast is about how the media, TV, radio, film seemed almost magical for a while when the technology wasn't in the hands of the masses.
Yeah.
Even when we had laptops and cell phones, it took, like you said, years for the platforms to catch up, or for even the corporations to understand how to use the platforms. So I'm thinking about the mystique that media creates and how we understand society, how we understand ourselves, how we see celebrities and public figures.
Yeah.
When you started working with these major brands and celebrities, like, for example, you're a producer for Revolt TV, and you've done work with Tidal and so many other corporations. Has it changed how you see industry?
Yeah.
Fame?
Yeah.
Society? How?
All of it. I think it's a blessing and a curse to meet people you look up to.
Yeah.
Where do I start? Working at Revolt was like one of the biggest blessings I could have had in my life. It also was a detriment, if I'm being honest.
Okay.
The reason I say that is because I think as a black man, and I'll say that at that age, I think I came when I was like 25. Like, I would, like, you're not a grown person, and like you're mid 20s.
Trying to say I ain't grown?
Yes.
I'm grown. Okay, but I feel you. Okay.
You're still like, you're still developing your identity.
I'm 26, by the way, guys. So I'm grown, right?
You almost there.
Okay, cool.
Nah, I mean, I'm still growing. You know what I mean? But it's like you're developing your identity, and you're still very susceptible and impressionable. Yeah. You know what I mean? But you still got this ego, like you're grown now and you know everything. So it's a very interesting space to be in mentally. And I was also a fish out of water. I was up here like by myself. Yeah. Like, I mean, I had a little bit of family in Queens, but like, I mean, for all intents and purposes, I'm just up here. You know what I mean? With family like 12 hours away driving, or 9 hours, depending on how you drive. But 9 hours for me.
That's like New York to Boston. Some people do 5 hours, some people do 3 hours.
Yeah, depending on how you drive. Right. So it was like, it was interesting. Like, it was good to meet people that I had seen on TV for so long and just see how normal most people are. Like, it's not like you think what you see. Like, show business is the show, you know what I mean? But you have it in your mind that this is like how these people are, right? So there's a few different instances. Like, I think meeting, like, I remember like one day, like, we was just chilling and like Redman walked in and he was so cool, bro. Like,
I'm not surprised.
He was so down to earth, like just chilling, like we was just kicking it, you know what I mean? And it was dope because it's just like, you know, you have every right to carry yourself. Like, you know, I mean, Redman's iconic. Like, he don't get enough credit, right? But then you see like, I remember like Cardi B came in, and this moment always sticks out to me. Don't get me wrong,
early Cardi B.
This is like, she let out her mixtapes. People were kind of not really taking her serious.
I was even trying to play her at that time.
I mean,
so
I was
feel so
too.
bad.
I was too. Shout out to Cardi B.
We love you.
I thought she could rap, but I also was like, I'm like super like, classic hip hop, like
that too. And also, I think society didn't even allow me to open up my mind to receive her either, so I was like conditioned by society. But
yeah, I mean, I just thought it was a lot of bullshit going on. Excuse me. I thought it was a lot of crap like out there music wise. So I was like being like this weird gatekeeper about it. But I was never no hater. Like, you know, I speak and be cool with everybody. And I'll never forget, she came in and this is when like her first mixtape had dropped, and I listened to it. I was like, shorty can rap. Yeah. I don't know if she's writing this stuff or not, but she could go. So, you know, I saw her in the kitchen. I was like, yo, Cardi, congratulations on the tape. She was super sweet. Cardi's a very sweet person. Like, and I'm not gonna talk like I know her personally, but just in several exchanges, she's a very sweet person. She's like, oh, thank you, very like soft spoken. Yeah. She's still ghetto.
I mean, we see her live all the time.
But all that like,
I've seen the
it wasn't really like that.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, by the time like we sitting at this table, I had walked past because they was about to start shooting. I just tapped on the shoulder to say congratulations on everything, good luck. And I was just walking to the bathroom. So let's say the door is right there. By the time I got to the door, The lights had come on. They said action, and her whole demeanor was like, ah, like just like she turned it on. And for me, that was just like, oh, this is like,
you know what I'm saying?
This is show business, right? So it was like instances where, you know, it was instances where, I don't know, it was almost just like a shock to the identity. Things that had informed who you are and how you move. You know, we look up to the Puffs, we look up to the Jay-Z's, and kind of seeing like how some of it was like contrived.
Yeah.
Will like, it'll cross your wires when you're still developing your own identity, and a lot of your principles maybe were based off of, you know, because these black people are what we see as like success in America as entertainers. Unfortunately, I think we're starting to get away from that now. But like
entertainers as the only black
as like the big black creative like millionaires or whatever, right? So it was kind of weird. I feel like I'm getting off track a little bit.
No.
But it was a positive experience as a young black person to work at a black company.
Yeah.
And mind you, I had come there from eBay Enterprise. So I had set up at eBay. I set up their whole like social strategy, like their whole process. I set it all up, right? But it was still like a mostly white company, so it wasn't like I didn't feel like I belonged. You know what I mean? At Revolt, it was like, you know,
But isn't it still like pretty white, like corporate, like
nah,
businesses are white, but I mean, does Revolt do a good job at hiring?
Oh, like, Revolt was black as hell.
Oh, okay, good.
It was blackity black, black, for sure.
Because you know how sometimes either nonprofits or even big, like Virgil Abloh had that whole controversy when they found out, like, I think his place in Italy had a bunch of Italians working there. Of course.
Like, what? I mean, you know, Revolt was really like, it was great to be like, there was no
code switching and all
code switching. It was like, and sometimes that could be a detriment because sometimes it got a little bit too, you got a little too ethnic when we're supposed to be like, you know what I mean? So, but it was a dope experience, and meeting Puff was amazing.
Only once? How many times?
I mean, I met him once, but you know, you see him around, and I believe in like energy exchanges. So it was always like a head nod. It was always some love, you know what I mean? But it was cool.
That's beautiful.
And like, you know, I'll never forget he came in with like, I ain't never seen no like money like that before.
Like in his hand?
Nah, it was more like, you know, when Puff was there, because when you walk up to the building, it was a fleet of black Suburbans and Maybachs, and then you like he walk in and just like
looks like money.
You just like, damn, like you know what I mean. The chain is like,
I don't even know what that looks like quite, but I've seen people with money and you feel it.
It's crazy.
That's almost inspirational though to see that. Right?
Yeah, it was great. It was a good mix of experiences. I would have done some things differently, but I'm happy that I got to be a part of that legacy and building that platform to the point where it is now, where it's at least reputable and they're doing their thing. You know, our team that was there, you know, 2016, 2018, we did a lot of hard work with not a lot of resources. So it was
Isn't
it
that
was
how
cool.
ours is?
Yeah.
Were you involved at all with Revolt New Rules or that whole thing? Because I remember the other woman that I met, Kylie, had been involved in that, and that's how I met you guys at the Boys and Girls Club, but I'll get to that later. But I wasn't sure. Okay, cool. Because I didn't meet you alone. I met you in the context of Revolt TV and also at the Boys and Girls Club, but we'll get to that a little later. So you spoke to Cory Booker in 2018 for Black Enterprise.
Correct.
And Black Enterprise is the premier resource for Black entrepreneurs, Black-owned businesses, and career, tech, and money content for Black people.
Yeah.
I wasn't too familiar with it, but when I went and I looked into the brand, I was like, oh, okay. Like,
you wasn't familiar with Black Enterprise?
I was not. Don't judge me.
Oh, man. That's their fault. That's not your fault.
No, that's me for sure. But once I saw the work that you guys do, I was like, okay. Are you still affiliated with the brand? Okay. Or that you did do. So obviously, from that Cory Booker interview in 2018, he ended up running for president. Announcing his presidential run in 2019. Yeah. I mean, you've done so much amazing work. You've done the Shades of Fashion for Tidal. And like I said, I didn't even get to look at all of the work that you've done. I'm sure you've done amazing things. But how do you reflect on some of these achievements these days? And do you have a favorite project, social media campaign, video, anything that you've done so far?
Okay, well, how do I reflect on them?
It's a loaded question.
It's a loaded question. It's a blessing. Like, I always look back and be like, damn, I can't believe I did some of that or was a part of some of these things. And like, all the stuff that I can say that I dreamt of doing, like when I started, I've done. Maybe outside of the next project that I'm gonna put out one in like top of next year.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But other than that, I mean, I can't really think of much
that must be a good feeling.
Yeah, it is a good feeling, but it's also kind of frustrating. But and I'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
So I look back on it and I'm always like proud, like, you know, looking back on the Cory Booker thing, I remember like, I don't know, my mom was like real proud on that one.
You were in his office, right?
Yeah. We
Where
went to
was
his
that?
office. It was on Capitol Hill. It was in the Senate building.
In DC.
And he was super cool. Like, I ain't gonna front. I thought he was like gonna be cheesy.
Yeah.
But we walked in.
He held his own in the interview.
He did, and he had the old school playing when we walked in. Like, he showed mad love, you know what I mean? And it was real cool just to be in that space doing that. We started in a blizzard. It was like the worst conditions ever to be walking around with equipment. So like when I look back on like doing those things with certain people or certain platforms, it's a pleasure to me. Yeah. And it's, you know, I don't take it lightly. Like it's easy once you accomplish things. And I've been in this space before where you kind of treat it like it's nothing or like whatever. But I still always remember, I always say to myself like, yo, what if I could go back and talk to my younger self?
Yeah,
tell myself, yo, you're going to do this, that, and the third. I know I would, like, my younger self would, like, be geeking out. You know what I'm saying? Like, super charged up. So I always keep that in perspective.
What are you most proud of?
I think I'm most proud of, we did Black History programming for Revolt. And I put together this project called New Black Renaissance.
Yep. And
that's the second thing I'm most proud of. I say second because I think it was dope to like introduce an ideology. I think that's what storytelling is for, what journalism is for, and producing is for. We get lost in the sauce of like people just like to. I may be generalizing, but I feel like people just like to check the scoreboard off sometimes and forget like what you're putting out. People are going to digest that and do what they will with it. So it was cool for me to put out.
It doesn't have to be just information. It's like
impactful. But it should be stuff that people can use. So it was good to put that campaign together and do that content. Because I got to prove to myself that I could do that. You know what I mean? This was probably like at the height of my Revolt experience. I was I was one of the key, you know, players, you know what I mean, as far as like our editorial platform was concerned. So that was good for me there's a confidence builder in the team. Like the team got behind me, like everybody was invested and it was dope. And it was dope to like watch Puff take it and run with it. You know, we saw Puff go for a whole year talking about Black Renaissance this, Black Renaissance that. And does he know where he got it from? Probably not. But and I don't need that credit. Right. You know what I mean? That is the power of thoughtful content and thoughtful strategy, is to watch it. You put something out, and when you actually see it permeate through culture, that is that's influence. Yeah. And we get that confused sometimes. So that was dope to watch him like take pictures with Jay talking about New Black Renaissance, and it was in, you know, Forbes, and you know, we ended up on
and knowing that the idea started.
Yeah, it was dope. Yeah, and whoever knew. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't looking for like no light. I was just looking for proof that I was nice.
Listen, when I saw that, like I had already had my eye. I was like, I'm gonna interview this man regardless. I was on like many different platforms. Now I have my own, but I was like, I'm gonna get the interview on whatever platform it is. But once I saw that campaign, I was like, yes. Because I've been calling this era a renaissance because, you know, I'm very academic and I study the Harlem Renaissance as well. And so I'm like, I see it as a renaissance. So when you put that language to it, I was like, yeah, it is a renaissance. And
people still use that terminology today.
Right. You wrote an article earlier this year, I believe, in April, or at least it was published then, called Changing of the Tides. I'm going to skip to this. A New Black Renaissance. And in it opens with a quote that says, "During the Harlem Renaissance, we began to have a voice and an aesthetic that directly impacted mainstream America. Almost 100 years later, welcome to the internet-induced New Black Renaissance. This time, we're setting the price." And in the article, you talk about recognizing our own power, our own influence, and building generations of wealth. Yeah. And you say this specifically for Black creatives. Yeah. So given how things have progressed in film with streaming platforms and music, what do you think is next for the Black creative? Or can you talk more about that article? Because you pulled out numbers, like you had data.
Yeah. I wish I would have continued that series, but I got this is what happens as a creative. You get too much in your head and start worrying about like things that maybe don't matter, right? So I mean, I should have kept publishing those. But I was like, it's not right. It's the rollout's not right, and I stopped. But that's besides the point.
Are you still planning on rolling it out a different way though? Or?
Yeah, it's part of a bigger plan.
I support it. Let me know. Let me know.
What was the question? What do I see the next?
What is next for Black creatives? Because you talk about the new Black Renaissance and where we are. So what are you thinking about it? Like, what was the thought behind that whole campaign and everything?
Well, the whole thing was really like, we use this term called pushing the culture forward, and I hate it because I feel like it's I feel like it's just a thing people say, right? Which is like, but tangibly, what does that look like? Like, what are the tangible steps to pushing culture? Well, how do we know we're there? How do we know we've pushed it forward, right? What are the KPIs? What are the measurables, right? So that's why I kind of started putting out a key performance indicator. Cool. So I guess like what I see for creatives is like I would like us to see like intellectual property is the game we got to master, right? Because we don't pay attention to how much like Black people in general. First of all, everybody's a creative. I just want to put that out there for whoever's listening. Being a creative is not reserved for those of us who do it professionally or the top tier geniuses and your Kanye West or your Steve Jobs or whatever. Human beings are inherently creative. When you wake up in the morning and you put your outfit together, you're using creativity. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? We do this in general. Yeah. But I think for like creative professionals, and also specifically Black people, I think intellectual property is a big game that we have to master, that we are at the tip of the iceberg for. The reason I say that is because like we tweet things that influence the way marketing is done.
Black Girl Magic.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Story. Just off on some casual stuff. You know what I'm saying? And we watch what we do become the standard for how brands communicate. You know what I mean? Like Black Lives Matter was really about social justice and human rights, and it elevated to like there's not a brand in America, unless they have their head on backwards, that is not trying to figure out like, okay, well, how do we do this right? How do we speak to Black people correctly, and how do we at least show awareness of what's going on? Because if we don't, there's repercussions, right? So I think like intellectual property is a big game for us. And I think it kind of circles back to like, I would like to see us like, okay, I'm a producer, right? So if I produce for, let's use Black Enterprise, for example. I produced this Cory Booker thing, right? And y'all use it, take it, and I get paid like a flat rate for what I've done, right? But the company will go and, get advertising dollars for it, you know what I mean? And all kinds of stuff.
Money just grows after that. You get your flat rate. But
right. As a creative, I should have a percentage of that in perpetuity, right? You see it for songwriters, and you see it for like in music, songwriters, producers, whoever the artist is, whoever's involved in making a track is getting a percent every time it streams. If the business is done right, every time it streams, they get a percentage, and they get a check at the end of the month forever. It should be that way for creatives. If I write an article for your website and you are using that space to get ad dollars, I should get a percentage of that because I'm creating the value. You know what I mean? The value is evergreen. You know what I mean? And I think that that's the next stage for creatives is trying to figure. There needs to be a system built. You know what I mean? And I don't know where that's going to come from or who's going to do it, but there needs to be a system built around intellectual property that goes beyond paying for a base rate. And then you look at how what's coming next, like the cryptocurrency and all that stuff. Like
talking about cryptocurrency.
All that stuff is going to play a role, though. You know what I mean? And
so we have to be ahead of the game. Essentially, is what you're saying, right?
Absolutely. So I think that's the next step. Right. That's what I got on that.
I like your angle on creativity because I think that's at the the crux of all the work that you do.
Mm-hmm.
And in an article in Huffington Post in 2017, the author Dwayne Grant, is that a friend you know? I don't know. Now from Huffington Post, he says that your vision is centered around reshaping the way we value creativity in this country. And he frames your motivation in a series of questions. And one of them that stood out to me was, what's it like to build a career and find success as a creative in an area that lacks industry? And so when you said, I'm a producer, and I introduced you as a content strategist, throughout your journey, as we know, people have a natural inclination to like play social media influencers or content creators or people in the culture that have like this, you know, a hashtag or some idea and try to discredit it if it's not attached to a corporation or some other movement. Like, did you have any hesitations about your own professional identity and when to like really own it?
That's a good
and
question.
What to call yourself? Do you still struggle with that at all?
That's a great question. I have struggled with it. I don't know that I struggle with it anymore, but it is a thought that I have sometimes. But I realize that titles don't really matter. So I struggled with it before because like I used to hate being called like a social media strategist. Because social media is just, think about it like this. Content is an engine. Social media is a vehicle. Social media don't go, there's no such thing as a social media strategist.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like there are people who like, yeah, sure, you can know the ins and outs of like the different ways you can use a platform, but if the content's whack, all that strategy don't matter. Just like if the engine is
that
weak,
makes sense,
it don't matter if the car is this color.
Like
and
I
the
learned what
nice.
time I had like a social media internship once, and I learned what time is the best time to post, and I learned, you know, like how to find your target audience. But if your content is
content's weak, it doesn't matter
what time you post it.
You know what I'm saying?
No one's checking for that.
If it's strong and you post it at 3:00 in the morning West Coast time, and it's still gonna go. You know what I mean? Now, granted, like I think social strategy.
It's important, right?
There's a place for it, but it's not. It can't exist on its own. Which is why it's less valuable than something that can. So I say that to say I used to hate being called a social media strategist because I was like, I'm a content strategist. Now that I've been doing content strategy for so long, I'm looking at like comms and messaging strategy and like how that informs content development, and which then informs social media distribution. So it's like, I say that to say like titles. Titles. The reason that people care so much about titles is because there's salary and income tied to certain titles, right? And that is a man-made concept. You feel me? All this shit is.
I can see some benefit in it though. It feels good to call yourself something, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I think that as I get deeper in the game, as I grow older, it matters less and less to me.
That's
because it's always evolving and there's always new technology and there's always, you know what I mean?
And right now, I just feel like, with technology, the way that society is, it's hard to just do one thing and to even have one title these days. Being adaptable, being able to collaborate, think across fields is like the key, and that's what everybody's talking about. So
you said something really important.
Why hold yourself to a title?
Being able to think across fields. I think a lot of like we've been in a gig economy for a while now, right? But I think that right now it's like really the value is on problem solvers in general. So it's about being able to identify what your transferable skills are. What can you do? Like I would never, and I tell this to all my journalist friends who like obviously the media industry has been imploding on itself for 10 years, right? And I tell people all the time, I'm like, yo, don't think of yourself as, I never thought of myself as a journalist. Because I always said, all right, well, I know how to like create content and I know how to like use the right cultural insights to create impactful content. I can do that anywhere. I don't have to do that in the editorial space only in magazines or media companies. I could do this in a tech platform.
That's how I feel.
I can do this in health and science. It doesn't matter. I can use the same skill set and reflect it across different industries. So I just wanted to hone in on what you said.
No, that's important.
I think that's important for creatives.
I have these interviews to inspire people that might want to go on the career path that you are on, but also people that may not have pride in their own roles. Like you can have pride regardless of where you are, because I don't know, I think that you can still have value in those skills in whatever field you're in. So whether you're at the Boys and Girls Club and you're making a great impact there, and hopefully getting recognized for it. That's the bad part. A lot of people don't get recognized for the amazing work that they do, but you can still have pride in it. And that's what I'm all about.
That's where people have to remember the channels they have. You can give yourself recognition.
That too.
You know what I mean?
And that's a skill.
Credit is important, especially as a creative.
Any tip? Actually, let's go to the tweets. Because I did a lot of research on you.
Uh-oh, I hope you didn't see the wrong tweets.
Listen, nothing crazy. Let me tell you, I feel like I really got to understand who you were.
Yeah.
And you see your power on Twitter because, boy, you have a lot of ideas. You got a lot to say, okay? Mm-hmm. And they touched me. So, for example, maybe because of the personal things that I go through in my life as well, one of the tweets that you said were, get real serious about who and what is a part of your life. If you're not getting a return on investment, then it's got to go. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be a painful detachment either. Things change. Be open to it.
Right.
You also say it's incredibly important to know your path because if you're talented, people will pop up along the way and try to turn their purpose into your purpose just so they can leverage what you bring to the table. You can't be lost in the sauce.
Yep.
Last thing I'm going to read is a quote on the imposter syndrome because I think for, I don't know, creatives of color, professionals of color. This is something that we deal with often, women in different industries, myself. I've dealt with imposter syndrome, which is when you feel like you don't quite belong.
Yeah. Or
you
don't
say,
deserve where
or
you're
don't
at.
deserve it. You say, throw that imposter syndrome out the window. You are smarter and way more fly than 90% of the people in the room you think you don't belong in, and they know it too. Trust me. Do you think that has to do with the whole, I don't know, knowing your value and the just how transferable your skills are? Talk more about that.
The last tweet, you mean?
All of them. Like I feel like you're in this position where you kind of inspire creatives or anybody, and you're kind of like speaking to their fears, to their insecurities. Are these like personal things? Are you like venting about your own life, or what is?
Sometimes.
Who are you speaking to?
It's interesting you say that because as far as inspiring people, because I never really. Every time
I see you as inspirational.
I appreciate that. I just don't think about it.
Really?
No.
That's the whole question. I'm not saying I didn't get to it, but that's the question. Like, do you see yourself as this like leader that inspires?
Okay.
Is that your goal?
We'll get to that. I think. Okay, I'm gonna answer that. That's a healthy question. So all right. So when I tweet. There are times I'm talking to myself or reflecting on things. You know what I mean? Like the tweet about like you have to be clear on your path because people will try to turn their purpose into yours so they can leverage you. I've lived through that. Yeah. You know what I mean? I've always been. Me too. I'll get personal. I've always been. I grew up in the military.
Really?
So, yeah, I'm a military brat. So I never lived anywhere more than 2 years until I got to high school. Right? So I was always displaced. I was always detached because I always knew, like, 2 years, we out. Yeah. Right? So the sense of belonging or wanting to belong as a young person was a subconscious thing. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So, like, along my journey, and I've always been really good at what I do. I've never not been... The shit. Yeah. I've never not been a key player in any situation I'm in.
And that's important to realize your value. Like when you look around like, oh shoot, I keep making things happen. Right. I'm valuable.
But what will happen is, you
ain't the only one that notices.
You ain't the only one that notices. And you're also a lot more humble than other people see you. You see, right here in this exchange.
I really relate.
You know what I mean? It's a very true thing. It's a very true thing. Even for you right here, you're saying like, oh, well, I look at you like this. And I'm like, oh, I'm, you know what I mean? Right, like, no big deal. You know what I'm saying? So what happens is when you're, especially if you're young, people will see you before you see yourself. Yeah. You know what I mean? And they'll have this, that, and the third going on and see how you can add to. I can't tell you how many times I've had people hit my phone like, yo, can we just need, collab? Yeah, we just need to meet. You just so smart. Like I just need to figure out. Like I'm talking about like record labels. You know what I mean?
Consulting fee?
All that.
Like I'm
talking about record labels, tech platforms, artists. All these different people will want to like work with. They don't even know what they want from you.
They just want to be around you.
That like there's something there that if they spend enough time in your space or you spend enough time in theirs, you will add probably more than anybody else. And when you're younger, you know, and maybe even a little naive, you'll think like, oh, these people like like we gonna work together like it's love. You know what I mean? It's never that.
No.
You know what I mean?
Your value is business.
It's business, right? And I think that if you don't stay attached, if you don't have a vision for yourself early, I'm sorry.
You good?
Squirrels over there eating my damn plant.
Oh no! These Harlem squirrels. Let me see. Oh, you're a plant dad. That's good to know.
Sorry.
Nah, you handle your babies.
Trying to get a little sun. Leave it out there. All right.
That's cool.
So sorry.
That's all right. If you remember where you were, you can pick back up, or I can go on to the next question.
No, I remember.
Okay, cool.
So it's like you have to know your path, and it's hard when you're younger because I feel like your path changes. You know what I mean? And sometimes like while you're trying to figure it out, like it's hard to know, right? But you have to know, like, you have to at least know, like, all right, this is the direction I'm headed in for now. Even if it's going to change, this is where I'm going.
Yeah.
Right? So what you have to be able to filter when people start trying to come in and impede on
take your magic.
Your magic, right? So yeah, I mean,
it's like recognizing that magic, protecting that magic, and with the imposter syndrome, just really respecting it, appreciating it.
I actually really want to speak to the imposter syndrome thing.
Yeah.
I hate how much we have embraced that.
What do you mean?
I think as a culture, we have embraced imposter syndrome, and we have embraced being surprised when we win, right? Like every time you see a post about somebody like announcing something, they're like, "Oh, I can't believe," or this, that, and there's like, why can't you believe that you got something you worked for? That's crazy. That's like me being surprised that I went grocery shopping and made a meal. Like, you know what I mean? Like you prepared and invested and you got your end result, right? So I think when it comes to imposter syndrome, I just want to say real quick that like you feeling that because like you don't never feel imposter syndrome when you're in a space that's not like challenging you.
Right.
You know what I mean? You just feel challenged. It don't. That is a completely different.
Maybe that's
thing.
what it is.
Yeah, but that's not the same as not belonging.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I mean?
So you have to be able to like parse that.
Yeah, you should separate and compartmentalize and say like, all right, I belong here. I'm just feeling a little like uncomfortable. That's fine, but don't trick yourself because what happens is a lot of people in these rooms. There's a lot of people making six figures that don't know what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah,
Excuse
and there's a lot of people that will feed on that imposter syndrome feeling that you have, especially if they see your magic. Listen, it's a real, it's competitive. It's business. And talking about the different fields and the different paths that you could transfer your skills to. In your bio, you talk about how you've gotten involved in creative development exercises and curriculum implementation. Excuse me. At North Carolina Museum of History, Brookline High School, and the Boys and Girls Club of Boston, which is where we met.
Right.
What was the partnership about with the Boys and Girls Club? It was the Live Inspired?
Yeah, it's a Live Inspired project. So the Live Inspired project is this curriculum-based and content-driven project that is for like creative development and career development for high school kids.
And you were working with the teen center, I remember.
Yeah, right. So we had partnered with Brookline originally.
Okay.
To just run some like test pilots of the program, and then Ade Bukola, who was over at Brookline, she mentioned the Boys and Girls Club, so I was like, yeah, we could tie them into it too. The more kids, the better. So that's how that happened. It was literally just me trying to
shout out to Ade Bukola
because
she is a freaking just powerhouse in the city. And yeah, that's the reason why you all were connected with the Boys and Girls Club and why I had the pleasure to meet you. She's a beast.
Yeah, that's the homie, man. I love her. So yeah, that's all that was. That's how that partnership came to be. As really all Ade because I wasn't even looking. She just brought it to me. Yeah,
she's awesome like that. But don't you feel like you have a natural disposition to educating? Because I feel like that's what you do in the media space.
Yeah, my dream is to run an educational media platform. Like that is my long-term vision. And I've been purposely training myself in education in editorial through Revolt and Black Enterprise and Adweek, doing like in the tech space. I was at United Masters for a little while. in the marketing space. I lead content strategy at the agency I work at now, because these are all arms of the business that I want to have. So I think a lot of times our generation, we rush to be bosses.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody wants to be a CEO and the owner and the top dog.
Freelance or
right.
just making their own money.
And all that is ego. That's just people not wanting somebody to tell them what to do.
Yeah.
All we really want, people mistake wanting autonomy for being the boss.
Yeah.
People just want to move how they want to move.
Yeah.
Right? They don't necessarily want to run a business.
Sometimes money comes with that, like
right.
the higher
it can.
role you have. It's the money that gives you freedom.
Gives you freedom,
it's
right?
Just,
But I've always said, like, I value working places.
Me too. I made a status about that a couple weeks ago. I said it doesn't have to be all about the hustle. You can be a valuable person on a team,
and you don't have to struggle.
You don't have to struggle.
What I'm saying? Like, we are married too much to struggling. And
I'm a working person, and I love the consistency that my job gives me, and I found ways to, give life to my creative outlets.
If you're gonna make mistakes in these early years anyway, so I would much rather do that on somebody else's budget than
the
mine.
Taxes and all that.
Yeah, you know what I mean. I if I mess up, I'm still gonna get paid the same.
Yeah.
As opposed to if it's my ship I'm running and I screw up, I'm gonna feel that in a few ways. You feel me? So
that's crazy. So you're gonna start an educational platform. Is that what you refer to it as? What kind of education? Is the content educational? Is that the idea? Okay.
Yeah.
Interactive in mind?
It's taking like pop cultural content and turning it into teachable moments.
Beautiful. Okay, so I know that you talked about dropping some type of new project or embarking on a new journey early next year. Is that it, or is it something else?
It's a case study for it.
Okay. So what's next for you then?
I don't know. When is this coming out?
This is gonna come out within 2 weeks, so definitely November 2020.
Okay, I can't say too much.
Don't say too much.
But it's gonna be dope.
Yeah.
It's an educational.
What is the sentiment like? What is this phase in your life?
It's the sentiment of the project is an educational media platform that I'm launching.
Okay.
For a major brand.
I want to know. Tell me later, off the record.
For sure. Where I'm at in my life is like I'm actually just getting peace back.
Yeah.
The first leg of your career is gonna have some struggle in there, and I just remember like running back and forth, like driving. Like I was catching the bus back and forth to North Carolina and going up to Boston and do this stuff with the Boys and Girls Club in Brookline.
And I'm in your DMs like, are you gonna come for my interview? Are you
right.
gonna come?
Just like, and I wasn't healthy. I wasn't mentally healthy or physically healthy. I was, especially working in entertainment. There's free drinks all the time. You always going to events. I was not in the best space. I was being effective. Yeah. I was getting work done, but personally and mentally, I was running to the ground.
I feel that completely. If I could speak to that, like during my most productive years after college, I was not happy.
Yeah, you're just a robot.
Unhappy. Yeah, just doing things for other people.
Right.
Proud of the achievements, but not doing what I wanted to do.
Right. And it was running me. It was running me down, and I also had I got laid off twice in the same year. Like all the things that you go through.
Yeah.
So right now I'm in a space where I'm like, all right, I'm at a good company. I'm learning. The person that I report to is the person who runs the agency.
Lit.
So like I learn how I need to learn. I have autonomy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm making damn good money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like this phase of my life is about I don't want success materialistically or professionally without having success personally. And I think that a lot of times we've been in this hustle culture for so long, and I think thank God we're coming out of it because we've been.
You think we are?
Yes, because we've been seeing what happens when people don't take care of their mental.
Yeah.
They get on these drugs or they kill themselves or whatever, right? And we've been seeing enough people, like we've been seeing people's demise in real time, like with Mac Miller. Like people felt that.
Yeah.
And I met Mac. Like Mac was the most beautiful, like energy I had ever been around. And he didn't even say nothing to me for the first 10 minutes. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But his team. He was a bright soul, but he was in hell inside. You know what I mean? So that goes to show you at the height of his career, he just signed a $7 million partnership deal with, was it Warner or something like that? I met him on a set of a freaking multi-million-dollar music video.
Right.
Self-Care was the video.
Wow,
I was there.
ironic.
I was there when he shot that.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Isn't that what they tell us though? Our parents always tell us, like, don't look at the celebrities, they're not happy.
Yeah,
My mom used to always say that.
That's because their parents are grown and they're looking at it.
They
went through it, and it's always funny because your parents they end up being right.
Yeah,
all the time.
90%
of the time,
most
not all
the
the time.
Yeah, sometimes.
So I think right where I'm at in my life and my career is like finding that balance. I spent 4 years, really 5 or 6 since college was over, out the gate. I mean, I was going a year at a time and not seeing my family until Christmas.
That stuff matters.
And it matters, right? But and I will say that I did what I had to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there was no such thing as a content strategist when I started.
Right.
That's a job you can apply for now. I had to make this for myself.
Yeah.
So
I feel that.
I had to do what I had to do.
Yeah.
But I wasn't seeing my family. I wasn't like eating right. I wasn't meditating. I wasn't going to see no doctors. I had, we all have trauma from childhood somehow. Even if you had the best upbringing, there's something in there that you need to account for. And I couldn't go to therapy. I was lashing out and doing I just was outside my body, right? And not necessarily like in the worst way, but I knew while it was happening, I was like, I'm not myself.
Yeah.
So like I got this opportunity to like, and it's a shame because you should never be anywhere where like they're not giving you health insurance and things like that. But like this is my first time like being able to take care of myself and really save money and so I've been doing that. Like that's why I haven't dropped all year. I haven't
No
put
pressure.
out anything.
Yeah.
And it would have been like that whether the coronavirus came or not.
Okay.
I wasn't planning on doing anything. I just been here. Like this is this is my first time having a place to myself and like I've been living. I'm used to like always being ready to be to up and go. Like for the past up until September of last year, I was always ready. I was always living where I could put my life in a suitcase and go for years.
Now you look pretty settled here.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Like none of this I wasn't going to have. All this was in storage. Like I was just ready to throw my stuff in a duffel bag. And if I had to be out, I'd be out.
Yeah.
So this phase in life is about like getting my personal to where my professional is. And that meant like stopping and taking care of family and like, I make sure I talk to my family once a week and reach back out to my friends.
That's autonomy.
That is, right? And going home like once a quarter. I couldn't do it this year because of the virus, but like
people think a higher, whatever it is, freelance hustler, a higher position somewhere that they're not happy is autonomy. It's not if you can't do what you want to do. It's really controlling yourself. And I just keep thinking back to what exactly you said at the Boys and Girls Club that I realized made me relate to you. And you were like, look at this room. Look at the floor. Look at the walls. You were like, someone designed this room. Someone chose the color of the tiles. Someone built, and the way that you think about the world and how much control we can have is something that's always inspired me. So I know you don't see yourself as an inspirational speaker, but you definitely inspire me. So thank you so much for this interview.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I hope it was good.
Yeah, it was great. Oh, my God, so many gems that I know that my listeners are definitely going to learn a lot. So. On my platform, I want to be very clear about my intentions, and I also want to respect the messages of those that grace my platform. And when Dev speaks about the influence of Black culture, he is speaking about Black culture. He is speaking about Black Americans. We're not doing this mincing of words with the people of color or, grouping in Latinx with, we can do that. But first we need to acknowledge the influence and power of the Black American experience. Grace and magic. Because when Black Americans win, I heard this quote recently, all of us win. When you help Black Americans, you're helping the poor Latinos like myself. You're helping the immigrants, the Cape Verdeans, the Asians, because we are also subject to white supremacy in certain ways, while in other ways we benefited. But I can comfortably say it's not about us right now. As my brother, he said I'm his sister. So my brother, Cornel West, says, Everybody thinks that slavery is America's original sin. But the original sin, and this is Native American Heritage Month, I believe November 2020, the original sin was displacing the indigenous people of this land. And so when we deal with the first sins, the first marginalized groups, and give them the rights and the recognition that they deserve, we will all win. Thank you, Dev, for the interview. For anyone who wants to go ahead and follow up on all the work that he does, his Instagram is DevTSmith, and his website is devtsmith.com. You can follow me on Instagram at Amber's Afro, AMBERSAFRO.